experience is something that matters when you actually take up your cybersecurity job. That being one thing. So if at all you are a fresher and you are able to showcase your talent in terms of whatever interview process is going on, the next thing they're going to be asking is about certification. Okay. So for example, if you've done a CEH certification, if you've done an ECSA certification or OSCP certification, that too matters. So CEH is what they basically look for, and that is something a kind of a basic level certification for cybersecurity aspirants. And if at all you're planning to do something like OSCP, that is obviously too costly. But then, OSCP definitely yields because, okay, let me tell you about one institute that actually provides with OSCP certification in India. So there is one particular, institute called HackerU in Bangalore. Did you guys ever hear of that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so HackerU is one institute that actually provides you with OSCP certification and exams, but the cost will move up to something like 3 lakh plus, So that is something like a 6 months course kind of thing where you actually have cybersecurity experts from Israel, I think, training you guys, and that fellow will actually make you do OSCP certification. And so if you don't know, OSCP certification is something that is much more valuable than CEH certification, right? So but I never say, but I don't say that CEH has no value or something like that. So CEH definitely has some value and is definitely more popular than OSCP. And whenever you sit for an interview, the first thing you'll be asked about for a certification is a CEH certification if you have it. Okay, so you can have any certification, but there should be a certification for the first kind of thing. So I'll tell you one example of mine. Okay, so long back I actually had appeared for an interview at one big MNC kind of thing. So if you've heard of KPMG, one of the big fours, so I actually appeared for a role, something in cybersecurity domain. So we had somewhere around 4 to 5 rounds. Okay. So the first round was a telephonic interview. Second round was a face-to-face with the director of cybersecurity department. The third one being something like an HR round or something, and then the fourth and the fifth being again telephonic rounds. So all the 4 to 5 rounds were completed, and I was waiting for the reply. And I'll tell you something about the reply. They were like, you're good with the domain knowledge as a fresher, and your communication is good, your attitude is good, everything, you'll be fit for a fresher. But then so I didn't have my certification back then of my CEH or something like that. So they were like, since you don't have the certification, we can't accept you. So I always suggest that it is better to go with a certification in hand, so that you don't have that particular thing also in your in your head that you don't want to because of the certification. So to start your career with, I'd suggest you to actually do a certification. Then coming up to the opportunity thing. Okay, so cybersecurity is such a domain where if you don't have proper experience hands-on, people would be hesitant to give you the opportunity right away. So don't actually restrict yourself that I'll be working in a very big company, I want to be the security analyst of Apple or Microsoft or something like that. But whatever opportunity you get, grab it. By the end of the day, even if your salary or pay is less, the thing you want to be looking at is the experience building up in your resume about cybersecurity, right? So these are some small tips about taking up your career in cybersecurity. And the other thing is, how do you indirectly go to move on to cybersecurity? So the first thing when you're actually moving on to an indirect kind of approach, maybe you'll be first placed as a network network administrator or support guy, who and then building up your experience, building up your knowledge much on networking, you become a system admin or something like that. And after the admin part, that is when you will have actually chances to slide your way through into the cybersecurity department. And this all actually traces back to the initial days of network and Linux thing that you had. And I was telling you the importance of networking and Linux in cybersecurity, is it? So if at all there is something like, you have any doubts in Linux and networking or something like that, please don't hesitate to forward your request messages to Ashwik, or in fact, you can ask your questions to me too, and we'll be very happy to reply you with the answers and explanations. Okay. For that point, I think that is off with this. So let's dive into today's presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, that's great. So let me just share you my screen. Right. So you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's getting into today's presentation. So this is what we are going to look at today. Okay. So the first thing being the requirements of the environment setup, then getting your hypervisor. So if the term is too complicated, hypervisor is nothing but VirtualBox, VMware Workstation, something. Okay. The next one is getting your OS image and then installing it in your hypervisor. And then coming next after that is sources list, updating your OS, upgrading it. And then the next part of today and the last part is anonymizing yourself. So before actually diving into the presentation myself, so can you guys give me something about anonymizing yourself? What is anonymization?
Where you can't be backtracked.
Okay, another definition.
Removing identification.
Good, good. Removing identification. Okay. Any other? Okay.
Making yourself untraceable.
Untraceable. Good, good, good. But what is the primary thing that you're doing in the background when you're anonymizing yourself? So this is something like a masquerading kind of thing. Okay, faking an identity. Okay. So like if at all there's okay, this is nothing much, man. So this is like your general proxy that you put up for your friends when your class is going on. What do you do there when you put up the proxy? Okay, you just fake your identity that you are somebody else, right? So to put it in a very non-technical general way that everybody understands over here, anonymizing is nothing but faking your identity, changing your identity. Okay, making yourself look as somebody else, masquerading. So I think you've got this term about masquerading in CNS, if I'm not wrong. So that is something about anonymization, right? So moving on further. So let's talk about the environment setup on Windows PC. So when you have the Windows as a host OS, the first thing you want to do is get your hypervisor. It can be anything, it can be VirtualBox, it can be VMware Workstation or anything. But then if you see the bolded one, that is VirtualBox, is what we are going to use uniformly throughout. Okay. So you can always experiment up yourself with VMware Workstation too. But then let's use VirtualBox for this course out, right? Next, the operating system image. So coming to pen testing distros, you have many pen testing distros, Kali Linux being one of the oldest and best thing as of my view. And then Kali Linux was actually called with a different name, something called as a backtrack, but then they changed it to Kali Linux. Okay, that being about Kali Linux, like you also have different other OSs, like Parrot OS, Black Arch Linux, you have Arch Strike, you have Bugtrack, you have Deft, you have Santoku, and you have a version of Ubuntu too. And then to be generic, you can use any Linux OS as your pen testing distro. But then the difference between that and this is when you actually use a general Linux distro, you might have to install all the tools yourself. Okay, maybe if you want to install your MSF console, if you want to install the framework, you want to install Burp Suite, or any tool as such, you have to install it manually. Whereas pen testing distros, that is these distributions that are specifically made for penetration testing, they're actually built in with many tools which you can directly use it without installing it yourself. So that is the advantage of this. And as you can see, the bolded one, Kali Linux, is what we are going to use further throughout in this particular course. And then obviously internal RAM and space is something very generic. Okay, obviously you would need internet to update packages, install tools and something like that. And then RAM size and space. Okay, so when I say that 4 GB plus and 20 GB plus, it doesn't mean that the OS will run on 2 GB or 1 GB or something like that, but it is preferable to have this. Okay, and when I say RAM size of 4 GB, it doesn't mean that it's your laptop's RAM size. Okay, this 4 GB plus is like, you know, the RAM size that you're going to put up for the OS image that you're installing. Okay, and then the space 20 GB. I mean, yeah, this is the same thing. You can have 10 GB also if you want, or 40 GB, 80 GB, whatever you want. But then 20 GB is something minimum that I would prefer, because you know you'll have to install different tools, and you know your packages keep on updating and upgrading time to time from the repositories and something like that. So these are the minimal requirements that I would say. So any doubts till now?
No.
No, sir. No, sir.
That's good. So let's move to the next. So hypervisor. So what is a hypervisor? So you know, let's not go much deep into what is a hypervisor, but then you know, a general brief definition. A hypervisor is where you host your virtual OS. Okay, that's something again called as a virtual machine monitor, something like that. So yeah, as I already told you, you know, you have VMware Workstation 2 from VMware, but Oracle VirtualBox is something that is suggested, and you can get it from this site. I'll paste that in the chat so that you can, you know, put it. You can actually go to that right now. Oh, sorry. Just a minute. Yeah, there you go. You can get your virtual box from here, and let me show you which and you know which one what to download. Right, exactly. So you guys able to see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes.
Like this. So when you click on the link that I've provided in the chat, it will redirect you to here, virtualbox.org wiki downloads. And since you're downloading it for your Windows hosts, this is where you have to click on this. So Windows host, and it will start downloading here. So I have it downloaded, I have it installed already. So I'll just cancel that. And do you guys want me to guide you through the installation procedure? Generally, it's, you know, clicking up with that, putting up next, and selecting your where you want to install that. You know, that path is also already done. That is C drive, the program files and stuff. So you guys want me to guide you through the installation procedure too of the VirtualBox?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No,
It's
right?
done already.
Good. That's great. So when you install your VirtualBox, and when you open it up, this is what it will look like. Okay, this is something the interface will look like. And you know, this is where you're actually creating your like, you know, virtual OSs. So if you can see, I already have my Kali pen test on, and these are something else. So Google Nexus 4, this one was from Jenny Motion about the Android thing. And okay, Music Studio is a separate, okay, that is a separate OS actually. So that is Ubuntu Studio, which has, you know, open source DOS and stuff, and you know, video editing. And okay, so let's leave about that. So this was the downloading and installation of VirtualBox, and going to the next one. OS image. So as I already told you, different operating systems for pen testing, but here we are actually going on with Kali. So I'm pasting this link too. This is also the, right? So this is also the official, website of Kali.org. So go to Kali.org, downloads, look it up, and this is where it will take you. Okay. And since you're doing it in a virtual box, so scroll right down and you'll find this over here, Kali Linux 64-bit virtual box and 32-bit virtual box. And if at all you're using VMware, go ahead with these two. Okay. And most probably, I think you guys are using 64-bit. So let's click on the 64-bit download and you will be redirected to this page. And there you go. You have it over here. Okay, sorry, this is a VMware image. And yeah, so this is the VirtualBox images, and you click on the 64-bit and it will download you a beautiful .ova file. Okay. Now you might have a common doubt over here about what is an OVA file. Generally, you might have seen ISO files and something like that. So an OVA is an open virtual appliance. So what is the difference between an OVA file and an ISO image? Is that, in an OVA file, to be simple about this, in OVA file, all the requirements and settings are pre-configured. When you download the OVA file, all you have to do is double click on that. You don't even have to go to your virtual box and then click on that thing. Right, Sujan, you can't access from OVA. So that's so well. We'll look at that later. So this is a general procedure of how you do it with an OVA file. And coming to the ISO file, so if at all you're doing it with an ISO file, so I don't have the ISO image right now. I have to search. Okay, so I'll send you the document that has the installation with the ISO image. So let's not go to the installation procedure yet. And you guys want me to guide you through the OS installation procedure? Actually, that is also the same thing when you do it with your Windows or your general Linux. Open that up, select the full install version, GUI mode, and then on the GUI mode after that, you have to select your place, time, and something. And then after your place and time and stuff, select your keyboard, connect it to your internet, and click next, next, next. That's it. Okay. That is your installation procedure of that. And going on to the next slide. Okay, so before moving on, you guys have any doubts?
No, sir.
Good, that's good. So maybe let me actually start my VM. So before my virtual machine actually starts up, so what is sources.list or something, that I've put it up here, etc app sources.list. So does anybody know about this?
So would you once again repeat it?
So I was asking you guys if at all you know something about the sources.list. Okay, seems like nobody is aware of that. Okay, so the file that is etc apt sources.list is actually the file where all your installation repositories links are actually kept, the mirrors for installation. So, okay. So let me take you to that. So I hope I screen is actually visible to you guys. So if at all you actually tampered with your sources list, you can always get it back from Kali repositories on Google. So whenever you type out with Kali sources.list, you'll actually get this link here. And all you have to do is just copy this up till here and paste it in your sources.list file. Okay. So yeah, so this is the Kali OS. So are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So whenever you install it first, the default password will be TOOR. Okay.
Would you please repeat it, sir? Your voice is not so audible.
Okay. So I was saying that whenever you install your Kali Linux, the default password and default username will be root and tour. Root is a username and toor is your default password for root. And obviously you know what to do after you install that, and you have to change the password, right? So this is your Kali Linux shell, that is your terminal. And I hope you guys are aware with the basic commands of how to change a directory, how to see what's in a file, how to make a file, how to make a directory and stuff. So can you tell me where will this command take me? cd space slash.
Current directory.
Nope. That's an update. So current directory, no. cd space slash will take you to the root, the literally the start of your Linux. So the root directory. Don't get confused between when I say that is a root directory. Don't get confused between the slash and the root directory inside the slash. They both are different. Okay, so whenever you create a user, the home location for the user is slash and cd home that you see over here. So this is the user's home location. So I don't have any external users added to it. And the root directory that you actually see is the home location. Don't get confused between slash and root. Slash is where you have your, literally your all your initial kind of these things where you have your binary files, your configuration files, and something like that. So etc etc is actually the place where you have your configuration files. Okay, so as you can see, these are all your configuration files, and inside etc you'll find one particular folder called apt. So can you tell me what is apt? Okay, so is it you guys are putting it up in the chat or something? So guys, since I'm presenting and since I'm showing it live, rather than putting it up in the chat, you can actually unmute yourself and tell me stuff on this. Okay. So APT is nothing but the aptitude package manager of Debian. So using which you actually install your tools or something like that in your in your terminal kind of thing. So APT is your aptitude package manager. So inside etc and apt, you actually find your configurations related to apt, and this is where you'll have your sources list. Sources.list, enter, and you see this. Okay, so these two are your sources where you actually like the mirror images for your installations of your Kali stuff. Okay, so if at all there is something wrong with this, or you want to update your repository or something like that, this is the location where you actually do it. Okay, so something about that. And the next thing is keep updating and upgrading your OS. Okay, so it's been much longer a time that I actually updated mine OS. So this is a command that you'll use for to update your OS. Okay, apt update. This is what will, like update all your packages. And let me actually just get rid of that right now because that will take a lot of time. Alternatively, you can also use apt get update. That will also work. That was the old command, but apt update is a new one. And once all your stuff here is updated, you might want to go and upgrade your packages too. Apt upgrade is that command which will actually upgrade all your stuff. So let's just cut this out. So this happens when your packages over here are not updated. You'll get all your broken package installations and stuff. One simple solution is just update all that, and the other thing is you can actually use this apt fix broken to repair those packages. The next command is dist upgrade. So what is the difference between upgrade and dist upgrade? Upgrade is where you upgrade all your general packages, general other softwares, whereas dist upgrade is something that will upgrade your distribution related packages, right? So that is something about updating and upgrading stuff, right? So any doubts up till now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Next part, anonymization, as we were talking about, faking or hiding your identity. Okay, so can anybody tell me what is the importance of anonymization when you're actually performing a hack or something? Why would you want to anonymize yourself? You can just go in and hack your stuff. So you guys want to answer about that?
Sir, if you're going to hack something, but with the help of the IP address or the MAC address, they can what do you say? They will know that who's going to hack and what's the location of them that they're going to hack, from where they're hacking.
Good. That's a good answer.
So that's why we need to spoof them.
It's simply your online identity.
Good. That's great. So yeah, so anonymization is the need of anonymization is actually true of what you told, to hide your identity, to not get caught in something like that. So we generally anonymize ourselves for that. And we have two types of spoofing over here. One is IP spoofing and one is MAC spoofing. So actually, before diving into IP spoofing and MAC spoofing, a generic overview of what it goes over there. Can you guys tell me what is the difference between an IP and a MAC?
IP
Hello? Guys, I'm not able to hear you.
Sir, IP address is nothing but it is used to identify the devices in the current network. That is the MAC address that I'm telling. Whereas the IP address it is going to uniquely get to know your device in that network.
Okay, good. Any other answers?
So IP address is a temporary address. When a device connects to network, it gets assigned with an IP address. But whereas MAC address is a permanent address, which is unique to every device.
Good. Good. That's good. So whatever you told is actually correct. Whatever all of you guys told are actually correct. So MAC address is something like a hardware address, so a kind of permanent address. So it doesn't change. So let me let me give you a small example about that. Mm, yeah. So let's take about your Aadhaar information, your Aadhaar number, and let's taking our country as a whole entity, and you being in our country is so you have your Aadhaar information, that is Aadhaar ID, that is one ID, and you have your school ID, college ID, and something like that. So what is the difference between your Aadhaar ID and your school and college, your engineering ID and whatever ID, employment ID, right? So that is what something is something similar to this IP spoofing. Sorry, IP address and MAC address. So wherever you go in the country, wherever you go in the country, whichever state you go, your Aadhaar ID doesn't change. So that is something kind of permanent to you. Okay. So coming up to the other IDs, when you're in school, you will have one ID, or a roll number or admission number kind of thing. When you move on to your intermediate, you'll have one ID. You move on to your BTech, you have your ID, and whenever you're working, you have a different ID. So this particular IP address that you see is something to identify, something that is assigned to an entity to identify it inside a network, whereas MAC address is something like its own address. So moving on further, how do you change your MAC address? So there you go. This particular command or this particular tool built in with Kali is something that is used to change your MAC address. Let me clear the screen. Yeah, sorry, that is MAC changer. MAC changer. So let's actually take some help of Kali itself. Kali, can you give me some information about MAC changer? So, yeah. So he actually gave us with some help with changer. So let's say that, I'll leave this on to you guys. So let's say that I just want a random MAC address. I don't want to give any specific MAC address. I just want to spoof my address with whatever comes in its mind. So what is the option that I'm going to use?
It's a random
Dasher.
/r.
-R, yes. So tag R is actually the correct option to do it. And so, you have to specify the device over here. So there you go. So whenever you use this, and you have to specify your devices, and devices meaning your interfaces over here. So this is my virtual box. So I don't see like VLAN 0. VLAN 0 is something that is your something that is about your Wi-Fi card. Okay, ETH 0 is your Ethernet cable. So well, I'm connected to my Wi-Fi in my host OS, but why is it showing me ETH 0? ETH 0 is something but the Ethernet, is it? So whenever you're hosting this as your virtual machine, you actually bridge connections, bridge network connections between your virtual VirtualBox stuff and your OS here. So if you go to your network, you can see I've used a bridged adapter. So whenever you're bridging it, it actually goes as your bridged connection, which is your, which will appear here as your ETH 0, right? So this is something, putting up putting up a random MAC address as your MAC address. So, and then what about if you want to set it to a particular MAC address? So if at all you want to pick up your friend and put him in trouble instead of you being in trouble. So what you do is you find out his MAC address and change it with a specific MAC address with a tag M. Okay, a tag M or space tag MAC. You can use either of these. Okay, that is one. And next, this is about MAC spoofing. Okay, and next, coming up to IP spoofing. So how do you actually spoof your IP address? So let me clear this. Right. So proxy chains is something that is again built in with Kali, which you can use for anonymizing your system. I mean, anonymizing your IP address. So what actually happens over here is, you have your IP addresses that needs to be added from the free proxy list. And let me just show you the slide and go through this, make you go through the slide and then. So the first thing that, whenever you want to use proxy chains is that, you have to edit your proxy chains.conf. What do you have to edit? Is that, you have to add up the proxy nodes in that configuration. So what will it do when you add up proxy configurations in that is, whenever there is some traffic going on from your side and you use proxy chains with those IPs, your data, your package will first move through those nodes and then to the final destination. So that is how the proxy chaining process goes on. And you might ask, where do I actually get, free proxies or kind of things? So you can actually just go onto Google and put out free proxies, and the first link that you get, freeproxylist.net. This is what you can use, and you have different IP addresses, and the port, and the type of anonymity. Elite proxy is something suggestible, and then HTTPS. So I suggest you use something about HTTPS. Yes. Okay. So all you have to do is pick up this IP address and port and put it over there. Right. So I'll show you how to do it. So where did I tell you? Where did I tell you are the proxy configuration files of a Linux? Where can you find the configuration files?
etc.
etc and apt.
No. ETC is actually the folder where you have all your configuration files. App folder inside the ETC folder is specifically for the configuration software, Aptitude Package Manager. Okay. So yeah, so inside the ETC, you can see this particular file, right? Proxychains.conf. This is where you actually want to edit your chains, and there you go. So whenever you open up your your proxy chains.conf in an editor, this is what you'll find. You guys able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
So yeah. So this is how it will be. And open up your comment for the dynamic chain and swipe right through to the down to the bottom. Okay. And you can see this particular thing, right? Proxy list. And under that is where you're going to add your proxies. Whatever you see here, the IP address, and the port. And you after changing that up, you just move on to saving the file and being out. And once after you do that, chains Firefox. So Firefox is a browser. So whenever you do this, proxy chains Firefox, your Firefox will actually open up after proxying it up for you. So I didn't add any addresses there. Adding those addresses, and that will actually take some time and actually opening this up. And you can always cross verify your public address. Okay. So this is what you'll actually see. So I didn't add up any proxies over here. So if at all you've added up proxies, this would look a bit different, going out through those nodes. And sometimes these proxies actually give you some trouble because some work and some don't work and something like that. So the defaults are always set to Tor. So how you're going to use Tor service? So Tor service is again that you get something built in with your Kali Linux. So let me just clear it up for you. And yeah, so how are you going to start or stop a service?
Service store start.
Service store. And your Tor service is enabled. So to check for the status, just put up the status. You find active, excited, exited. So yeah. And now you go on with your earlier command, proxy chains Firefox.
Sir, is it specific to browsers or the whole system?
No. That's a very good question. So proxy chains is never ever actually restricted to your browser. You can use any service. So whatever service you want anonymization with, you can actually use proxy chains for that. And so
Like how to
if
put
at all
it
you
on
wanted to use
system-wide proxy.
how to put it on a system-wide proxy. Yes, that is what I'm going to go and tell you. The next thing about that. So cool. So before going into that, actually, so let's for suppose you want to do an Nmap scan on something like this. So Nmap is a tool which is used to scan networks, scan entities about the services they're using, and different stuff. So you can always go on with this proxy chains. Enable your Tor service first, for defaults, with the Tor nodes, proxy chains, Nmap, and your command. Okay. So maybe D4 and aggressive scan, tag, and then your IP address. So an Nmap scan will start on that with a proxy. Okay. So that is how it actually goes. So as someone was asking, how to actually put up with anonymization in your system. So that is where you can use the next one, NIPE. NIPE is something that is built on Tor project over here. So before that, let me actually paste this up for you. So you can go to that particular location. Let me actually go to that location too. So all you have to do is either click on that link or go to google.com and type out Knipe. And you'll get a GitHub link on the top. This is a Perl script. So go on that and you will find this. So this can be used to actually put up with the whole of your system on anonymization. All you have to do is install that script, start that script. That's it. So how to do that? So I think you guys know how to clone from GitHub, is it? So, or let me actually show you the process. So go to that particular GitHub repo, click on clone or download, click on the link. Oh, okay. So this is, I don't think that will come up here. So this is VM. So, okay. Black keyboard. So I think I already have it downloaded. All right, so I have Knipe already over here. So all you have to do is, git space clone. This is the command for that, and paste up that link, whatever you copied over here, and that will clone the repository for you. And I think I already have my Knipe over here, and then so entering into your Knipe folder, you can actually find your Perl script over here. And the first thing you have to do is install Perl Knipe.pl install. This will take you to that installation, and it will actually install it up for you. It's been ages since I actually touched this OS, so I think the package is installed. So Perl Knipe.pl space install will actually install the tool in your thing, and Perl Knipe.pl space status will actually tell you if that is disabled or enabled. So as I told you, I need to repair my OS, and then so Perl Knipe.pl space start will actually start it, and then stop will actually stop that service, okay, or that script. So Knipe is something that you can use to anonymize all of your system. That will change up your IP address. To cross verify, you can actually go on to Google and actually type out your what is my IP, and you'll definitely see a different IP than whatever public IP you had prior. Okay, so that is something about Knipe. And let me tell you, other than Knipe, you actually have different other system anonymization tools too. And that was about IP spoofing and MAC spoofing and anonymization. So any doubts up till now?
No, sir.
Sir, a small doubt.
Sir, if spoofing is that,
Yeah, please.
then how do we catch the black hatch?
Catch the?
Black hatch.
So tracing and forensics is that is where it comes down. So generally what happens is when you don't take when you don't take good proxies, or someone who actually helps you out and not leaking your information. Generally, whenever you're using proxy nodes or something, that's a very simple process, right? Instead of going from A to B, your packets actually go from A to C to D to B. And if at all there is a hack on B, obviously people try to trace back the route, and they find those different IPs. All they do is they can simply go to those server owners and they ask for logs. If at all that guy is actually good and wants to keep your information private, he won't give the logs. And if he gives the logs, that's it. The trace is complete. So even if you anonymize yourself with different IPs, all it is doing is putting your packets in from different nodes, right? So if you want to trace back anyone, well, that's a different work. Now you have to go to the server owners, and you have to ask for logs where that particular data came from. So that is how it is done. So you have to be careful in choosing your these things, okay? Proxy nodes or something like that. Hope that clears your point. And this is today's assignment for you. Find out other anonymizing scripts like Knipe online. You definitely have those. And then try to automate your setup so as it actually anonymizes right on the boot. So I actually did it to my personal computer, my other laptop. So that is a simple cron script. If you've heard of cron tab, cron jobs and cron tabs are actually used to automate your system using scripts or something like that. That's very, very small script. So you can actually go on internet and learn about cron. And I hope you're actually, learning about this one, Python, that I actually told yesterday. So I think I started with Python.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, fine. So yeah, I need you guys to go through Python, making packages, calling packages and something like that. I want you guys to be through that, so that that is a process later on. So, and this is today's assignment. As I told you, find out those scripts. There is different anonymous scripts other than Knipe, as I have told you. And the next is automate your setup using cron. All you have to do is put up your your commands. The Mac changer and Knipe is what I use for automation, anonymization, and for automation I've used cron job that comes with any Linux. So just enter it in the cron tab, edit, and then restart your system. You can see effects. So I actually told pretty much the full process on how to do it. So find it out, do it, and send me some evidence that I actually can believe that you actually tried it out. So that being said, that is the end for today's session.
Sir, a small
So I
request.
hope you enjoyed today's class. Yes, please go.
Sir, would you please share this PPT?
This PPT. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. I'll do it. I'll put it.
Yeah.
Any other request? So you want me to put up in the WhatsApp group that we have? That'll do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Okay then. Any other doubts? Okay, so I take that as a no. Cool then. Bye guys. Meet you in the next session. Good. That's great.